most of you probably watched, I've been just trying to live stream my drive. I had a podcast a while ago called the Number 42 Podcast, and I thought it would be time. Let's bring it back. Let's start it up again. And the Number 42 Podcast, as the name implies, for those who know, we're going to talk about life, the universe, and everything. So, news, nothing's off the table. Favorite topics, controversial topics, funny topics, technology, whatever. We can talk whatever about. We've got an hour every day of driving to and from work. Just kind of dump my thoughts on the internet for nobody or one or two people to listen to. So, hey, let's have a fun conversation. I like the Breaking Points show. Just FYI, I think they do a really good job covering the news and politics and elections and everything. So there's a bunch of really cool technology podcasts out that I'm really enjoying as well. Science, UFOs. I'll share links with all of my favorites there because they're way smarter than I am. I just have thoughts. I wanted to start this morning, as I'm battling through traffic, with what I think is a core issue within society, and particularly U.S. society right now. I think globally it's an issue, but like most pronounced, obviously, is where I am at right now. And if I had to boil everything away, it's that our accountability is flipped. I think entry-level workers, children, etc., are held far more accountable than the people at the top. And I think that's the core of a lot of our issues right now, is the fact that it seems like you could honestly do a sliding scale of accountability. Like, as your pay increases, your accountability and whether or not you'll get fired or things like that drops dramatically. But like entry-level workers, yeah, you're gonna catch it no matter what. Example, like if you work at a grocery store or a retail store and you steal a pack of gum, there's a strong possibility you'll be terminated for that. If you are a manager and you fudge some hours or something, I've seen people just get written up. Not at my current employer, but some previous ones. And oftentimes what I find out after the fact is like they didn't even actually get fired. They get this ability to bow out gracefully and resign or quit so that it doesn't go down that they got fired for their job because they did something wrong. And it seems the higher up you go in the food chain, the more common that is. I will stand on business on this. If anybody ever leaves a position to randomly just like, oh, I want to spend more time with my family or reevaluate, that individual is being given an out to escape accountability. They are never going to be called onto the carpet. They're never going to be punished for their actions. Nobody's ever going to know the dark, dirty deeds they did because they gracefully bowed out and nothing ever happened. I could speak on a few situations. So, not necessarily a huge fan of Alani's. They're not bad, but like, I think Ghosts are my favorite. They don't seem to give me like mass anxiety when I drink Ghosts. I just kind of like them. I like their flavors, whatever. But everything is so expensive that I set like a price point that I'm targeting so that I'm not bankrupting my family to have a little bit of joy. Which is going to take me to my next point. in the Breaking Point show, they were talking. Saugers railed about this a bunch, and I tend to agree. And as somebody who believes that families should be a priority, we don't enact policy in the United States, and especially in Utah, that actually encourages people to have families. Example, the people who can tend to have families right now, or like should be having families, I'm not going to say afford, because that is a, the number of people who can actually, on paper, afford families is pretty minimal. I guess I should have said my opinions do not reflect that of my employer. These are my own opinions. I do not speak on behalf of my employer at any point. Um, but we don't have family friendly policies for the most part in Utah or the United States, and they were going on about like this whole culture of like cutting property taxes. Like, why are we cutting property taxes for people who own expensive homes at the cost of people who should be having families and putting kids in schools? Like, we say we're pro family. We say uh, that we, lots of people espouse the ideology or the thoughts that, you know, people need to be having more kids and they're frustrated about immigration. Fine. But for a good and healthy, stable you know, country, you need to have at a minimum a replacement birth rate, which we don't have, or we're close to not having. But we're gonna keep trying to cut taxes on old people at the cost of the people that are going to be having or should be having families. Like, what kind of backwards idea is that? It's like we're gonna benefit all these people who, I mean, yeah, sure, they've worked, they've got money. I'm also gonna be like pretty harsh about this. Oftentimes, what I see is, especially older generations, complaining about government inefficiency. And when you get into like the government and a lot of the inefficiency, do you know who created the inefficiency? Just saying. The These people who are complaining and trying to get their taxes cut are the people who made the system as inefficient as it was. Even if it could have been somewhat efficient, they tanked that. And now they complain about it. It's like, well, yeah, but you hamstrung the government. Not that the government should be in everything. I am not a big government believer. I think most governments should be, if they were fighters, like middleweight, welterweight fighters, right? Just big enough to really have an effect when it needs to, but not so big that it consumes all the resources. Right? That's my honest opinion. And I think smart policy, which does exist, takes real policy experts and people who are professionals to implement. But we incentivize this like resource wealth extraction, and I think the Epstein set, the Davos set, like really describes a lot of the people that get in power and stay in power. And I don't care, red, blue, white, black, brown, gay, lesbian, whatever you are, you're not probably part of that group, and they're screwing you over, and they're the only ones benefiting from like all these tax cuts. Also, tax cuts as an incentive for like working class and middle class families. Most of the time, those individuals need the money today, not at the end of the year. And then most of the time, they're getting hosed out of it when they're filing their taxes anyway. So, like, the true like group of people that are having kids, you're like, oh, we want to benefit them having kids. They're maybe gonna get $500 at the end of the year. Well, they're stretched so thin, they had to put that on credit card and they just paid that off on interest. So it's just a handoff to a credit card company. Like, Can we stop pretending like we are family first and this is a free and fair market? No, this is a cooked system to benefit those who already have. They are starbelly sneeches, and we will never be. Anyway, also, not that it matters because I'm just me, but I'm a little frustrated that my representatives here in Utah aren't participating with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey in reviewing the Epstein files and naming names and calling people out. Like that. Come on. There's how many like anti-trafficking foundations supposedly here in Utah that they support, but yeah, you connect to the biggest like group because it's got weird ties, and suddenly, mum's the word. Really, really, your religious people that practice your beliefs. Come on, put your money where your mouth is. Show up and do the right thing, or resign. Blake Moore, go review the episodes, name names, or resign. I'm done. And like all your stock trading nonsense. Oh, uh, funny story there. I got in trouble. Not in trouble. Rephrase that. I got blocked on social media for quite some time by my congressman because every time Unusual Whales would post that he failed to properly disclose his stock trades, which he's making real good money suddenly as a congressman, but no problems there, right? It looks like Epstein was just a professional at insider trading and moving money around for seedy organizations, billionaires, and intelligence agencies. And so nobody wants to stop that gravy train. So Blake Moore, Mike Lee, do the right thing on the Epstein files. Stock trading ban on all people in Congress, judges. Like, we need an ethics reform within our government, like an absolute ethics reform. If you have an elected office at the federal level or you're an appointee, you and your spouse cannot trade or own individual stocks. Full stop. And if you're a judge, yeah, absolutely not. I don't care if we have to up your pay. Yeah, cool. Every person in Congress gets $1 million. I mean, that's going to suck, but I think ethics are way more important than being bought off. And I think, yeah, then we should be able to look into, hey, how come you're getting all this really cool stuff that's way outside what your salary's covering? That should be interesting. Also, you should be banned from being on the board of any company for 5 years after you leave an elected post. Like, if we're serious about like waste, fraud, and abuse, let's start there. Let's get some accountability. Let's ban Congress and the government from trading stocks, and let's include judges. Heck, let's do every senior level executive within the federal government. You can't trade stocks. You can't be on the board when you leave. None of this revolving door nonsense that I'm in the FDA and then I'm back out working for Pfizer or whatever. Come on. Like, and we're sweating people. We're going to sweat people who are working 2 and 3 jobs on conflict of interest, but we're not going to hold the elected officials who are, throwing around billions, if not trillions of dollars. So, Utah representatives, I'm particularly calling out Mike Lee and Blake Moore, go in and review the Epstein files like Massey, name names, don't be a coward, put your belief and your money where your mouth is, or get out. Somebody should challenge you on that alone. Stock trading ban, don't be a dirtbag. Practice what you preach, or pretend to preach. Because what I've seen publicly on the news ain't it. I would have been called on the carpet a billion times over for behaving like that. But you're going to stand there close to power and pretend like you're doing the right thing? No, no. That's not it. And I would hate to see you one day. I mean, maybe that money's great. Maybe it keeps you warm at night. But my conscience would be, I feel like my conscience would just be screaming at me constantly. Especially when you pretend like you're going to protect people. Anyway, also blocking institutional investors from having to sell off their single family homes they own. Because, the single family homes shouldn't be owned by single families. BlackRock should have all those. Got it. Yeah, makes sense. BlackRock's a single family. It is rainy. Let's flip this around. Let's see this. Let's stop looking at my face and let's rainy drive. I kind of like the rain. It's kind of pretty. Kind of, I guess, it's soothing to the soul. Um, Also, we need all the water. Uh, Whatever we need to do to get that water here in Utah, like we got to start making some changes because we we need we need six solutions we're working on simultaneously. You know, we got to get that like the Great Salt Lake filled back up, especially if we want to have a good Olympics coming up in the future. And like, hey, if we got to pipe seawater to the top of the mountains and let it run down so it can help evaporate and do all that and help fill the lake or help keep the lake at a high enough level, let's build the power plant. Let's run the pumps. I think it's kind of a clever solution. You can pipe from like the San Francisco Bay up to the top of the Sierra Nevadas, and then just kind of dig an open air canal all the way down, and just run it 24/7, 7 days a week. And you've only got to get the water to the top, and then it'll pull the water down, which would actually not be as difficult as some might have you think. And that's not the only solution that should be done. Other water conservation projects, like let's stop growing alfalfa. Let's do the right things. That we should do all of those things all at the same time. Because I like skiing, I like boating. I can't afford to do either of them anymore, which brings me to the point that I don't think this will be a controversial take. It shouldn't be, at least. Private equity ruins everything. Everything. I cannot think of one thing that private equity hasn't actually ruined. Well, I've heard the argument, oh, but they're investors. Yeah, but they destroy companies for short-term gains instead of long-term. So they don't even actually really do a good job for their investors. Because it's like, oh, you could make all this money over 20 years, or you can have $5 today. So how about $5 today? I mean, there's nothing brilliant or good about them. I have not seen one do anything of value. I guess the camera's out of focus the whole time, so. Sorry, switch your camera carefully. Um, Sorry, ranting a bit. Also, yeah, go follow Unusual Whales. Really good information. I think they do really good, especially like reporting on like congressional stock trades and who's doing what that they get a hold that he gets a hold of. Phenomenal, right? Like really good insight. I'm like, hey, that's weird. Like, why is that individual doing that? And then suddenly executes X policy. Like, and people saying like, oh, well, it's legal. I mean, just because you just wrote the rules so you can do unethical and what should be illegal stuff doesn't mean it should be done, right? You could write a law that's like you can murder X, and like that doesn't make it right. Sure, that's what the law says, and we've had lots of laws in the past that clearly were wrong. So to pretend like just because it's in writing and then law means that it's right, let's get real. Ooh. Gonna have a nice little foggy, rainy pass to the canyon here. Well, I think that's most of my rant that I had this morning. Shouldn't be much of a rant, but just I guess in happier news, I gotta remember the name of the podcast. I see mostly the clips, but they've been breaking down some scientific breakthroughs. There's some really fascinating stuff in science that's happened recently, like in cancer research and like uh, programming and building like immune system response, like custom immune responses that really could radically change um, human lifespans and technology. Like there could be some like pretty massive jumps in like health if it's not all kept away from people. I mean, imagine like if you could double human lifespans, but keep it so like you're in a productive like I'm in my 30s to 50s for like 70 years. I mean, you could see some really interesting things happen. Some massive societal shifts too, which those would have to be figured out if private equity doesn't ruin it, because that's not a free market. That's them cheating behind the scenes and pretending like it's a free market. Um, but yeah, and some interesting breakthroughs in fusion energy as well. It'd be fascinating to see if we crack that egg here, because that also would provide massive jumps in capability if we could provide abundance of energy. I'm not gonna say cheap, because like I'm sure spinning up the first few plants will be like wildly expensive, but the ability to like mass produce huge amounts of energy kind of like gives you all sorts of interesting new technological options that you don't typically have right now. And yeah, I won't keep ranting too much longer. Love your neighbor, do something nice. Um, Try to be better, your best self every day, a little bit better in every category. Try to be kind and do the right thing. That's a lot to ask. All right. Well, that's been my live stream everywhere this morning. Yeah. Have a good one. See you this evening.